Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Just Books with Marie. I am Marie, and today's video is going to be different from previous videos because today I want to talk to you about all the books I read in the month of April. Let's just. So, these are all the books. Yay, clap for me, I tried. Now, the very first book I read is Tomorrow I Become a Woman by Iwanose Odafe. And I don't think I can say this enough. Miss Odafe finished work with this book. Now, this book is a book that tells the story of Obianuju. I mean, she's the center of this novel, but her story and the story of other females just shows this or explores this deeply patriarchal system at work in the lives of these women that would not let them flourish. Now, it's a 396-page long book, and it is published by Ouida Books. And you know what? Because of how well she wrote this book, I rate this book a 5 out of 5. This book, as far as I'm concerned, is someday going to be regarded as a classic in the league of Things Fall Apart, Half of a Yellow Sun, Joys of Motherhood, One is Enough. Yes, it will be in those leagues. So like 10 years from today, 15 years from today, people are still going to be talking about this book because it's a very engaging read and very emotional as well. So I can't say this enough. You'll need to pick this book and have a copy in your houses. It isn't a joke. This book is a book every home should have a copy of. So I'm just going to stop there and pick it up. The next book I read this month is an oldie but a goodie titled The Joys of Motherhood by Buchi Emecheta. And this book was published by Penguin Books Publishing Company. And it was written in 1979, or it was published actually in 1979. Yes, an oldie but a goodie. Now, let me tell you a story about this book. I love telling stories. I first read this book in my 200 or 300 level. It was one of our texts. And after reading it, I gave it to my mom. And I was like, you need to read this book. And so she goes through it and she's like, oh, dedicated to all mothers. So first, Mumsy was very happy. Now, my mom is a really fast reader, unlike me who likes to take my time to savour every plot and every twist. And so in the space of 2 days or less, she was done reading the book. And she came to me and said, what kind of book is this? It's so sad. So yeah, so I need to let you know from the get-go, Joys of Motherhood is an irony. Honestly, because it's more like the pains and tears of motherhood. Now, this book tells the story of Nwego, who is the love child of Agbadi and Ona. And she's sent off to the city, from the village to this Lagos city, to her second husband, having it that she wasn't able to have a child for her first husband. And though she doesn't like her second husband, Nwego luckily gets pregnant and begins to bear children. And that excitement of finally being a fulfilled woman makes her just keep bearing and bearing and bearing children, forgetting that children are expensive to look after. I mean, she doesn't realize that one, she's in a different setting from her ancestors. And this is a different time because times are changing. There's the education, the white men are coming in, and somehow World War and all of that. So the times are different. The setting is different. She's not in the village where children would just go to the farm and all of that. And so we find Nwego putting herself through so much to make ends meet, to be able to look after her children, whether her husband is present or absent. And she just devotes herself to being this good wife and amazing mother. And we find that eventually she pays the price for ignoring herself. Now, Nweko has put so much hope on her children, hoping that someday they're going to come and look after her and all her suffering will definitely be rewarded. But unluckily for her, that doesn't happen. And so all she does is talk about the son in America and the other son in Obodoyibo because she can't mention the word Canada. So she's always talking about the other son in white man's country and the other son in America. And unluckily, she dies a very sad death. And eventually, her children return to give her the most befitting burial her village or hometown has ever seen. And it's so painful because Adaku, her co-wife, had warned her not to put all her hopes on her children. But not heeding to her co-wife's advice, she goes ahead to be everything for these children. It's a beautiful book. It is 200 and yeah, it's a 265 page book with very fine print, so it's quite a lengthy read, but it comes highly recommended. And I can tell you this book is well paced, beginning from the 1930s all the way. And the setting of this novel is brilliantly sketched, transporting you to a time you were not born into, but you can feel and understand and learn a lot from that era. So that's my take on this book. And of course, it's going to be a 5 out of 5. I have no right to say a classic is less than a 5-star, okay? I have no right. Oh no, I don't. So I will not end this gist without mentioning the presence of many profound quotes on motherhood. I think one of them, if I can remember, what greater honor is there for a woman than to be a mother? And then before I end, I think I want to read something so I can portray the character of Nnueko and all she went through to be a mother. She said, here she thinks her love and duty for her children were like a chain of slavery. Enough said on this book. The next book on the list is Wake Me When I'm Gone by Odafe Atogun. And it's a 244 page book. Am I correct? Yes, 244 page book published by Masobe Publishers. Now, this book, I found it very interesting that the character of Ase is just so beautifully rounded. Ase goes from being this woman who doesn't care, she's just minding her business and her son. So she goes from being this nonchalant woman to being this force to be reckoned with when she decides to question the system, but not just question it, but fight it too. And so she goes from one triumph and then to another. And as her story unravels, or the story of her quest unravels, we see Ase becoming this powerful character. Now, the flow of this novel is very seamless from the first word to the very last word. I mean, the entire novel. But it is a slow burn. I must warn you, it is a slow burn. But that doesn't matter because it's a profound story, right? A very inspiring story of courage and remarkable triumph in the face of adversity. I like that the protagonist is not just female, but she is a superhero and a catalyst for change in a society where men are in charge. Yes. I'm going to rate this book a 4 out of 5, but I must say this, I would really love to see this book be a text in secondary schools because of the message contained in this book. It will be a wonderful book for students to read while they grow up. So that's that on Odafe Atogun's Wake Me When I'm Gone. Also, I have done a review of this book already, so you can go check out my review if you want to know more about the book. That will take us to The Widow Who Died with Flowers in Her Mouth. Now, first off, I have to say, Obinna Udelme, the author of this book, should be called a bestseller. This book itself should be a bestseller. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of how unique and different it is from other Nigerian books. Now, The Widow Who Died with Flowers in Her Mouth is a collection of 11 short stories, right? And when I was done reading this book, I thought to myself, this man must have been a serious student of Søren Kierkegaard. He must have really studied Søren Kierkegaard. Now, who is Søren Kierkegaard? Most of you might know him as a philosopher, but he's more than that. Yes, he's an existential philosopher, but he was also a satirist, a religious writer. He was also a psychologist, and he had a lot of other titles under his belt. And so in this book, Obina Odenwo explores existentialism against realities as told in the first story, John 101, or The New Ridiculous Way to Commit Suicide and Be Famous. Don't you want to read this book already just with that title, right? I know. And let me just quickly tell you, I'm not supposed to do this because I've also done a review of this book, but let me tell you about John 101. Now, why it's titled John 101 is because John is notorious. He's got this spooky vibe about him. And so in the building where he lives, he's the only one on his flat. And every mother wants her child, stay away from him, stay away from him. And when they have new tenants, they're like, okay, let's tell you about John. You better watch him. You better stay away from him. You better this, you better that. And why is he notorious? Already, he's not one who is friendly. And then, as if that doesn't help, there was a time John's room was broken into. And John was like, whoever did this thing is going to regret it. And soon after, they found out that the person who actually broke into his room fell and crushed his skulls and everything. So that just even made people more afraid of John. Now, John in this book is planning to commit suicide, right? That's why you have that title, The New Ridiculous Way to Commit Suicide and Be Famous. So he's planning to commit suicide and decides to inform the world about it before he does so. And so he enlists the help of some gang members led by Baba. Now, that is where existentialism and reality now play a juxtaposing place in this story. Because Baba, unlike John, comes from a middle class family. He's had a proper education, got a proper job, and did the proper thing, and then lost his job for doing the proper thing. What was the proper thing he did? He found out there was some corrupt acts that were taking place in the banking sector where he worked. And so after investigating it, he decided to, inform people, inform the higher powers about it. And that was how he lost his job. And so Baba decides, okay, I'm just going to stay on the streets and play you guys, since that's how you want to play it, right? So yeah, that is one take, existentialism against reality and how it plays. Now, there's also the place of mysticism as seen in the story. It has to do with Emilia, which happens to be my favorite story in this whole collection because it's a wholesome story of friendship between this woman who goes to preach to a man, and somehow this quirky friendship starts, and in a way it kind of helps turn the man's life around. But Emilia is a mystery. And then there's also surrealism as explored in The Redemption of Father McGettrick and his various dreams. I've already talked about that in the review. And then we see sensuality being explored in stories like Melancholy, The Housekeeper, and Obama Tailoring. That said, the experience of some of the characters are orchestrated by things not seen. And that's the title of another of the short story here, which tells the story of a doctor, a young medical doctor who has an affair, a very forbidden affair, with a married woman, and now is on the brink of madness. So have you seen how different stories touch on different interesting subjects? Quite philosophical subjects, if you ask me. Honestly, this book has to be a bestseller. What are they waiting for? And finally, one more thing before I say finally. The ending of the stories are not grand or happy. But somehow, what this book offers remains succinctly or madly imbued in your memory even after you've dropped it. So I need to warn you of that. You're going to have a takeaway with this book. Like after you're done and you close it, you're still going to be ruminating over the stories you've read because they are wild. Also, it is published by Masobe. It is 337 pages long, but don't forget it's a short story. It's a collection of short stories, so you can take your time and read at your convenience. And most especially, I will rate this book a 5 out of 5 because it's different. Yeah. The last book on the list is Chasing Shadows by Lynn Austin. Now, I'm yet to finish the book. I'm still reading it. I'm not even quite halfway there yet. But so far, I'm thoroughly enjoying this book. It is a faith-based historical novel, and it's 411 pages long, and it's published by Tyndale House Publishers. Now, this book right here tells the story of three women, Lena, her daughter Hans, and a Jewish lady named Miriam. And it's set in the Netherlands during the Second World War. So we see how their lives are just changed and transformed. And another thing to take note of is the book is predominantly family oriented. So you find yourself in this place where you are hoping and praying and wishing that all family members come out of this war experience unscathed, as if that is possible, right? Well, one thing for me is, having read this book so far as I've done, Bible verses are taking on a whole new level of understanding for me, because now I'm getting to see people having their faith, having their lives threatened, and their faith really tasked, and they're still speaking the word of God and believing and all of that, and having to go through very difficult things so far. Now, the style of writing is thoroughly intense, and I already find myself immersed in the dangers and fears and hopes of the women as they navigate life, love, loss, and every other thing coming along. I don't know yet. And what happens is, you just, the way the plot and characters are interwoven makes me find myself rushing from one chapter to the next and from one page to the next, wanting to know what happens next. Yes, it's a very exciting read. So maybe when I'm done reading this book, I just might do a review. If you want me to do the review, then just say Chasing Shadows. Just comment Chasing Shadows, and I actually would do a review on it. I can tell you this much: I have enjoyed reading this book so far, and I can't wait to finish it within the next 24 hours. Now, have you enjoyed our gist today? And have I probably inspired you to want to pick up one of these books to read? I hope so. Before I continue, I want to ask you, have you subscribed to this channel? If you haven't, what are you waiting for? Go on, go do it. You know you want to. Truth is, it would do me a world of good. I will be very grateful if you do that. And of course, please like this video and don't forget to share. I'm sure there are a lot of book lovers out there who are not very much aware of this channel yet and would really love to get to know you all, know what you think about all these books we've talked about. Aren't books so sweet to read? To get lost in the world those writers create for us. What a gem. So thank you so very much for watching my video. I am grateful. Like, share, subscribe, and please comment. I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you very much. Until I come your way again soon, stay blessed, stay reading, stay winning. Ciao.